Hello there gardeners! Today I'll be showing you how to plant a hedge. Autumn and spring are the best time to plant a hedge. And I've wanted one for a long time, so now is the right time for me. Start by marking out approximately the size of your hedge area. Mine is 75 centimeters deep and about 3.5 meters wide. Using a measuring tape and a straight plank will make work lighter. Then I start taking up the turf. From experience I can tell you that a sharp spade makes work much easier. To minimize the waste I produce, I will keep the turf and I will show you later on what to do with it. If you can, try to cut just under the roots of the turf and not take too much soil with it. All this is quite hard work and fairly time consuming. But as with most projects, the most work is the preparation, and once you've got that, you're nearly there. Now we can start measuring our site precisely. The edge of the paving slab is now grass-free and revealed. That means the 75 centimeters of the depth can be precisely measured. I use my half moon to make marks in the grass and then line up the plank and make a nice edge. Now you've marked out the straight edge, you can use the half moon to remove the remaining lawn. All the removed turf goes onto a tarpaulin by the side and will be used later on. Now get ready for digging. You can either plant a hedge in a single row or you can plant in a double row. I've decided for a double row because I want more plants to go in, a bigger variety of shrubs, and I also want the hedge to be nice and thick. The soil I've got here is very dry and it's not very good quality, so I hope that your soil is a little bit lighter to work with. So for my double row, I dig 2 trenches, one on this side and then one on the opposite side. I'm using fairly small saplings, so you don't have to dig the trench that deep. I think 15-20 centimeters will be enough. So here is my bundle of joy. These are 13 bareroot saplings I ordered from an online company. There's plenty of choice out there, so make sure you buy from a decent company. Bareroot means just that. They don't come in a pot, they just get dug out from the field and come with their roots showing. And this is what they look like. On arrival, the roots should be damp, but make sure you keep them that way. Keeping them wrapped up is a good idea. I also have a few other plants I want to include in my hedge, and here is the full list if you're interested. Now I dig out the second side of the trench. As I said before, I think 15-20 centimeters depth will do. It obviously depends what sort of plants you planting for your hedge, so you might want to check that your depth is sufficient. This is part of my vegetable patch, but rather than taking all the wood off and adjusting it, I just make sure the plants get planted the same depth as in the rest of the trench. The idea is that the hedge will obstruct that compost bin. The compost in the vegetable patch is very good, so I can use it to put in the trenches. And this is the result of about 2 hours of quite hard work. Now we come to measure out the spacings. For a double row of planting, so that's what I'm doing, the recommendation is 5 plants per meter. For a single row, it would be 3. So if I take 1 meter and the side that I'm working on, I put 3 plants within that 1 meter, and then on the side opposite, in between these plants, I will put 2 plants. That makes 5 plants a meter. At the moment, I rest the plants against the dugout soil of the trench. Do keep the labels for reference later on. As mentioned before, these plants are all bare root, and bare roots dry out very easily. So work quickly or cover up the roots. And now I'll start on the other side. I fill in the gaps, and that, like I said before, should make up to 5 plants per meter. When you buy bare root plants from the supplier, you can either buy bundles or you can make up your own. To keep the roots from drying out, compost is always a very good idea. Not just that, but of course it enriches the soil of your trench. You can use multi-purpose compost, or tree and shrub compost, or you can use your own homemade one, like I do here. This is my little helper. The advice I was given was to angle the plants at 45 degrees. The idea behind that is that the base of a hedge should always be wider than the top. Now I need to heel in the saplings. This is fairly self-explanatory. The idea behind it is to get rid of all the air pockets that we have created by digging over the soil. It also means that the roots of the saplings have contact with the soil, which guarantees good growth. Just be careful you don't snap a little plant because it is quite delicate. When planting your sapling, the advice is fairly simple. By looking at the sapling, you could sometimes see the line where the tree had been planted before. Try to use the same line so all the roots are underground and the stem is above ground. It might sound obvious advice, but a lot of newly planted trees die because they've been either planted too deep or not deep enough. Again, firm in the sapling and obeying the 45-degree angle or thereabouts. And one more just to recap. Get your sapling into position, check it has enough growing medium around it, and heel it in. To finish off, I'll make sure the soil around the saplings is all evenly distributed and looks neat. And now to all the turf we kept from before. Simply turn the grassy bit of the turf upside down and the roots effectively sticking up. That way the grass won't grow and the whole thing will turn into a nice mulch for you. And now to water. Give your young hedge a good start with a decent watering. Don't let it dry out for the first half a year to a year, so it's actually worth looking after it a little bit more until it's thoroughly established. Depending on what saplings or little shrubs you bought, it might be good to cut them back initially, but it will say on the instructions when you first got them. If you want to give your hedge an additional mulch, feel free to do so. I'm making use of the guinea pig hay that they've finished with, but sadly I don't have much left, so I'll have to just top up as I go along. Mulch protects the soil and therefore the plants growing in it. It keeps it from getting too hot and from drying out, so it's important you only mulch wet ground. Effectively, it's like putting a blanket over it. Other mulches you could use is, for example, leaf mulch or bark you can buy from the DIY store. One thing I would say about any mulch, don't put it too close to the stem of the plant. Keeping a little space around it means there's no direct contact and the stem won't rot. And here is the newly planted hedge. It doesn't look much at the moment, but give it a couple of months and I'm sure it will bulk out and look just wonderful.